Here's how I think that Kuroko could have been a lot better if it framed itself in this approach. So you've got all of these high school boys that are unfortunately born very, very, very bara. They just got a lot of muscles. They're very strong. They're meant to be athletes. But what really lies in their hearts is a passion and love for magical girl anime. They really, really want to be magical girls, but they're just not blessed with the attributes to do so. So they decide to do the next best thing, which is become magical basketball players. And
I'd watch.
That's my reframe of Kuroko no Basket. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to The Box, the Annie chat box where five friends run around in a teeny tiny space to talk about all things anime. I am joined by two of the five friends with me today. One of them across a lot of ocean and a lot of international boundary lines. There is the one, the only Jonathan Joestar.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
I like that you greeted them with like enough volume to compensate for the distance of our listeners. That is good stuff. And closer to me, but also across a coast of sorts, there is our beloved producer extraordinaire, Cassie.
One day, I will succeed in keeping her captured in my closet and she'll never leave Portland again. But until then, this is where we are.
This is where we are. Inside a box, which is also a tight space, so it's pretty good. It's a good arrangement.
We're so close when we're so far away.
Oh, that's so true. It's so true. Coming up on the dock today, we have a main topic for you. We're going to talk about what makes sports anime great, and that's kind of to each of us. It's going to be talking about what we look for in a sports anime and what really makes it, like, rise above the others, keep us watching, get us to kind of cheer for the athletes and yeah, all that. Especially because I don't think any of us are like real life sports fans.
Nah, not even a little bit.
Not really.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to just to break that down a little bit. After that, we'll be doing a review of Kaze ga Tsuyoku Fuiteiru, or Run with the Wind. To get us started on this main topic, however, let's see here. Like, yeah, so none of us have ever been, just, like, actual sports fans. In that case, like, have you ever been picky to, like, what kind of sport a sports anime features in, like, choosing if you'll check it out?
Not necessarily. I think when most people, I do tend to go off recommendation more so than me going, oh, look, a sports anime, I'm going to try every single one. Normally I wait for somebody to say, hey, Cassie, you should watch Haikyuu. And then they're like, by the way, you should watch season 2. You really should do that. But yeah, I think most of the time when a show is recommended to me, I don't care if it's football, basketball, volleyball, whatever, as long as when I watch it, because here's the thing, like with sports anime, I found that the one thing that kind of makes me, I don't know, fall off, because the only ones I've fallen off are ones that fall into this sort of, I don't want to say trope, but this otherworldliness aspect, where when I'm watching two people play volleyball in Haikyuu, for example, I know that it's being upped to another level, and I know that that's not really how exactly volleyball looks. But then you have things like Kuroko no Basket, where they have, like, superpowers, but it's still grounded in reality somehow, and that kind of throws me. So I guess I look for a more realistic approach to sports, I suppose, which sounds really dumb when you're saying I'm looking for a realistic approach in an anime. But that's kind of, I think, what makes me more intrigued to look at a show. If it was a show about racing cars and they raced into another world isekai, I wouldn't want to watch it either.
Has anyone in here seen Initial D, actually?
I have not. I have heard good things.
Me either.
No, I have not.
I wonder how realistic those race scenes are. Like, I've heard the music for them. It's, like, really cool, like, Euro EDM stuff, but It'd be interesting to see how that transfers.
I think it's because, like, things like Kuroko no Basket are kind of like the JoJo's of sports anime. Like, you have to, like, just kind of turn your brain off and just accept the craziness that's happening in front of you.
I think I came up with, like, a reframing a couple days ago in the shower where I have all my best ideas, of course.
Of course.
But I was like, here's how I think that Kuroko could have been a lot better if it framed itself in this approach. So you've got all of these high school boys that are unfortunately born very, very, very bara. They just got a lot of muscles. They're very strong. They're meant to be athletes. But what really lies in their hearts is a passion and love for magical girl anime. They really, really want to be magical girls, but they're just not blessed with the attributes to do so. So they decide to do the next best thing, which is become magical basketball players. And
I'd watch
that's my reframe of Kuroko no Basket.
I mean, maybe I'll retry it in that regard. But to long story short, to answer your question, no, I don't tend to care about what the sport is. I tend to care more about how it's framed and how it's presented, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it kind of allows some bounce off for me to mention that one of the things for me that's a big deal with sports anime, and it can be done in multiple ways through, like, the education of the sport or the production. They just have to get me, like, interested in the sport itself to a degree. So, for example, like with Haikyuu, I really kind of relished in the fact that I learned that the volleyball team is made up of people on all of these different positions that have their individual roles that they need to perform. You even have some people that can be bench typically, but then when they need a specialty tactic, they'll swap them in to perform that sort of role. Like, it's really cool. You have like multiple setters and you have blockers, but they all have their different techniques, which is really neat. And in Kuroko no Basket, like, I think what I got the most, like, aware of and interested in was actually just how long, like, cycles of the game go through, and, like, what happens if you have, like, 5 points left in the game, and then, like, what's gonna happen if a point isn't made at that time or whatever. Like, I did a lot of clock counting and biting my nails in that show. And then I also noticed that when I was at my parents' house and there was a real-life basketball game going on, I kind of was able to watch it with mild enjoyment because, like, I knew, a base enough level of basketball information from the show. A show that failed in that regard was Welcome to the Ballroom, which I think really underutilized its ability to make ballroom look like an enticing sport. As someone who's done a little bit of ballroom dancing, like, I do really enjoy it for a lot of reasons, and none of that was expressed in the show. Like, they could have just done beautiful dancing animation. That's a big one, and they totally failed. So, yeah, that one still stings a little bit for me. But what about you, John? Are there things that draw you or deter you away from sports anime?
Honestly, I don't really know, because I don't actively watch sports anime. I can count the number of sports animes I've actually finished on a single hand, thinking about it.
Not gonna lie, when we were walking to Winco today, I was like, I'm surprised John is even on this review. Because you never crossed me as somebody who would really be entertained by sports anime. Which is interesting.
So yeah, like, I've seen Free, I've seen Run with the Wind, I've seen Yuri on Ice, and I've seen Keijo, if that even counts.
I mean, depends on what your definition of sports anime is. Because everybody seems to have their own definition, one way or the other. But if you consider it a sports anime, I think that you are correct.
Yeah, I can't. I can think of other series that I've started watching and, like, maybe enjoyed, but didn't really go out of my way to actually keep up with or watch. Like, I watched a couple of episodes of Ice Shield 21 because of the anime club, but then I didn't actively watch any beyond the 3 episodes that we watched there. So,
well, out of the few anime that you've watched, the few sports anime, like, what do you think the draw was? Was it the sport itself, or was it something else? Or did you just watch it because somebody told you to?
There was a bit of watch it because someone told me to, but it would have to be the story, because it definitely isn't the sport itself. And just like, if the characters themselves made me interested in keeping up with them, like see what's going on, and then like sure enough, I would. If the characters got me to care about them, then I would care enough to cheer them on and be happy when they succeeded or upset when they failed. That's probably the best way to describe it.
I entirely agree. I think that I would say that strong characters is an aspect for me, but definitely, like, on a more specific note, give me someone to root for.
Yeah.
That's like a huge core thing for me. Or it at least makes the experience really fulfilling by the end, if that aspect is present.
Yeah. That's probably one of the reasons why I picked my favorite character. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I can't really think of like a sports anime where usually I don't pick out at least like one or two that I'm like, oh man, I'm really rooting for them. I want to follow them. I want to see their journey.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in that regard too, like if the athletes don't have what I consider to be sufficient growth or like a journey by the end, then that kind of sucks. Not like they can't fail, because of course they can. That can be very shaping. In certain ways. But like, let's say, I guess, for example, they end up winning something and it doesn't feel like it was earned or like naturally acquired. That can kind of be a downer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like the amount of sports anime that I've seen at this point, but it's probably at least past counting on one hand.
I've seen a decent amount as well. I think that like another draw too, and this goes along with what you said with characters, but I think that one of the things that I love about watching sports anime is that the friendships that are built, because it's on a team working towards a specific goal, has some of the best friendships and relationships I've seen in anime, period. And I think that if that's absent, then that's another reason why I might not like the sports anime I'm watching. If it's too focused on the sport and not the people playing the sport, then I get kind of detached. But then again, if it focuses too much on the people and they're unreliable characters, such as, I don't know, Hanebado, then I kind of tune out halfway through, because, like, the sport isn't important anymore. And also, the characters aren't good. So for me, it has to be a show that can balance both setting up that team that I want to root for, like you mentioned earlier, and really showing those friendships and how they develop. Do two people hate each other at first and become best friends? Do two people love each other and could never get enough of each other, and then they have a fight because somebody missed a spike during a football game? I don't know. Like, I want to have that kind of conflict that only really can happen in sports anime, but I don't want it to be the focal point all the time. And I think that the sports animes that do that the best are the ones that I love the most.
That's a really good way to put it, I think.
I guess another question that we could ask when it comes to sports anime, outside of the things that we like or didn't like, maybe we can name like one or two of the ones that were the most stand out for us in regards to the things that we loved. For example, I think that, ironically, my favorite sports anime, I haven't watched past the first season. I think it's because the first season was just so perfect that part of it's laziness, part of it's, I just don't want to keep watching because I'm worried that it's not going to be the same. And that's Haikyuu season 1. Because, one, it helped me really look at a rivalry that I could get behind. You know right from the first couple episodes that Kageyama and Hinata do not see eye to eye, and they're very different people. Though throughout the course of the anime, ironically, these two people who are so very different are the ones that complement each other the best. And both on and off the court. And I loved that. And of course, the more people who came in, the more I got excited to know more about them. The more I looked forward to each and every interaction. In addition to that, we didn't really talk about this very much, but I think that animation in a sports anime is a must. I think, I think if you watch a sports anime that's not very well animated, I think you touched on this a little bit in Welcome to the Ballroom. But if your
Yeah.
shots aren't dynamic, it's not going to be a sports anime that's going to hold my attention. I understand that that there are a lot of studios out there that don't have the best budgets, and those studios probably shouldn't pick up sports anime. Because that's one of the draws, is if I just want to watch a normal game of baseball with the excitement factor of just a panning camera, I'll just go watch baseball. I'm not going to watch anime baseball where they have cuts, things flying into the sky, people crying as they run, all that shit. That's what I want. I want that good, crisp feelings and love all seeping through in the animation and straight into my eyeballs and straight into my heart so I can cry.
That's a very, very solid point. You also just made me remember from the recesses of my brain another visual sports offender, which was Dive.
Oh, no.
Bad stuff, because,
No.
I mean, Dive just lacked on, like, all points, but its animation of, like, just being in a pool as compared to something like Free is just, you know, Free does it so much better. Honestly, like, even Tsurune, which I didn't end up finishing, made archery look so cool and just like so immersive. Like they did a lot with playing with the breeze and like leaves blowing and like the dynamic camera shots once the arrow was like delivered.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can just really make a big difference, I think. Like especially when it comes to a sport that I really have like no exposure to, for archery, for example.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here thinking of moments in Free where they decided to go Zanny with stuff going on just to make it that bit more dramatic. Like suddenly dolphins and sharks.
You know, that also makes me think of another show that maybe typically I don't consider, or I haven't like considered, oh, this is a sports anime, but in ways it kind of does, in making itself enticing, is like Kaleidostar with the acrobatics also. Yeah, which again, like everything about it, like the costuming and the stage performances and stuff, it's very appealing. Even though, again, I have no freaking clue what they're doing. Like their warm-up routines, I know that their muscles hurt because, ooh, that looks tough, but...
Oh my god, the things that athletes do to their bodies just terrifies me. Like, Jesus Christ. But for sure, like, I think one of the things that makes Kaleidostar, Haikyuu, Free, all these anime so fun is partially due to its production values. I don't typically say if a show doesn't look good, it's a bad show. There's plenty of shows out there that don't have the best budget that were still fine, but I don't think that the animation necessarily would have added to it more so than saying, wow, this just, like, for example, Kaguya-sama. There's no reason that show needs to look as good as it does. If they had toned it down a little bit, I would have been fine. But I think with a sports show, you have so much level of hype and needing of seeing that exact moment the hand hits the volleyball, or the exact moment those skates hit the ice, and things like that are just, they have to be well animated for it to make you want to keep watching and being captivated, in my opinion anyway.
I think that's very true. Another example that I thought of is how, like, in the final episode of Yuri on Ice, where it's the last performance of Yuri that we're going to see, it's a real bummer that it's literally like the exact same routine that we saw that blew our minds in episode 3, but it doesn't have that same impact.
Yeah.
Seeing it for the 4th or 5th time.
For sure.
The aftermath of it is good, but like right then, yeah, like my excitement was just kind of dulled. I like zoned out a little bit.
And even
That's
like
fair.
the exact same recycled footage that we've seen times before.
Yeah.
Just
another very successful, actually, I think these are technically sports. Something that, 2 shows that are very successful with this, with, like, non-conventional sports, are Chihaya Furu and March Comes In Like a Lion.
Yes!
Yeah, like, such a good job making people's hands going to, like, cards or shogi pieces just so dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's good stuffs.
Would Hikaru no Go count as a sports anime in that case? That's
what?
I think so.
a board game, because that's another one I've seen.
Which one?
Hikaru no Go.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, so that would be another. It's actually just, honestly, I think this topic for the bulk has just kind of reminded me, hey, this show is a sports anime, even though it's like, you know, it doesn't come right to the front of my mind because it's like not necessarily a sport that I grew up watching or something.
And
So that's kind of cool.
Like, thinking back to even that series, like, yeah, the animation is probably a little dated now because of the age of it, but it's still them slamming the stones down onto the board. That was like something they definitely put the care into, and getting the sound right and getting to feel like, yeah, that's where it goes. Like, and like, it's a game that's older than chess, but they actually made it kind of so hyped that I went out and bought a Go board.
Nice.
And learned to play. Didn't get super good, but I know how to play.
I don't think I've really successfully seen CG utilized effectively in a sports anime. I think usually when I see CG, it's kind of more of a deterrent for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, Ballroom was a huge offender of that. And it, I mean, I guess it's actually, who knows? There might have been some good CG in Hanebado with like the birdie, but I really can't remember that far back.
I did notice some CG in Run of the Wind.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of had to with those gigantic crowds running and things like that, but I think when they make the CG the forefront of the shot is when it can be a problem, especially because sports anime in general tend to draw your eyes in a little bit more than the average show, because you're watching for those movements, you're watching for every single expression that the characters are going to make in regards to what their next move is. So when you're that tuned in and then you see, I don't know, a CG hand or something, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Just for everybody's fun, I Googled what the definition of sport is, and according to our definition of sport, a sport is an activity involving physical assertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against others for entertainment. So in that regard, anything that causes you physical or mental strain that you're doing and involves a skill where you're competing against others is a sport. So there you go.
Thank you for that assist.
Yeah, because I mean, I've listened to other people trying to say that like sports anime that I define as sports anime aren't sports anime. Like there are plenty of people who are like, "Oh, Free isn't a sports anime," and I'm like, "Are you trying to tell me swimming isn't a sport? Like, what world are you living in?" But anyway,
What? Yeah.
But yeah, also a fun fact, in biology terms, a sport is an animal or plant showing abnormal or striking variation from the parent type, especially in form or color, as a result of spontaneous mutation. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I just thought it was interesting.
I will say that's something I did not know.
I had no idea either. I was like, oh, okay. I've learned something new today.
Going through high school biology, I can't say that is something that I knew.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Me either.
But yeah, I think that we definitely illustrated just some good points about what we look for in sports anime, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that may potentially play into impressions down the line, just because in upcoming seasons there's going to be more sports anime, so who knows if we will look into them or not.
Question. Currently, what are your guys' favorite sports anime? Like your top one? Like, if you could only have one. I said earlier, mine's Haikyuu Season 1.
It should be easier for me since I've seen so few. But
mine's the entirety of Haikyuu, but I'm not gonna lie. Another show is kind of fighting and edging for that spot as well. But
what would that be?
I'll save it for later. It's a surprise.
I see.
But yes, John, gun to your head.
You can only have one. Go, go, go.
I think I'd have to say Free. Even though I haven't seen anything beyond the first season.
Free, very good.
Free is good.
Free good. Yeah. That was a good question. That was a good way to end off on it. That being said, are y'all ready to run into our review today?
Girl, am I?
Perfect. So again, to just recap, we'll be reviewing Kaze ga Tsuyoku Fuiteiru, or Run with the Wind. I'm just gonna go with Run with the Wind because it's easier to say throughout the rest of the review. So yeah,
This is fine.
Yeah, this is fine. On fire. Run with the Wind is produced by Studio Production I.G. You also know them for a lot of other sports anime, including Haikyuu, Welcome to the Ballroom, and Kuroko no Basket, some better than others. And it aired in fall 2018. And just saying that, then I'm like, oh man, look how behind we still are. But we're catching up.
We're doing the best we can.
I know.
We're running full speed ahead.
I know I first started watching this because Cassie showed it to me when I was visiting around Kumari-con.
Oh my god. Yeah, I feel so dated.
So a few episodes were already out by then, and I think I watched up to episode 4 or 5, something like that.
Something like that.
Fun fact about the synopsis, I originally provided the one from the My Anime List page, but it was very long and verbose, and it didn't read well to me personally. So here, I hope you enjoy the synopsis from the manga.
Okay.
Kakeru, a former elite runner at Sendai Josei High School, is chased for stealing food. He is saved by a Kansei University student, I.G, who is also a runner. I.G persuades Kakeru to live in the old apartment Chikuseiso, where he plans to team up with his fellow residents to enter the Hakone Ekiden Marathon, one of the most prominent university races in Japan. Kakeru soon finds out that all of the residents, except for I.G and himself, however, are complete running novices. So yeah, I passed this back in the fall. It gained traction within our host community, because Cassie, I know that you checked out the early episodes and really enjoyed it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And then she spread the joy to John by introducing him to it.
Yep.
Completely forgot about that. But yes, I did.
That's why I'm
So
on
it
the
wasn't-
review in the first place.
That
so
is
you,
fair.
Cassie, you are the reason that John is on a sports anime review. Congratulations.
Well, you know what? Listen, I can predict that because I've watched many episodes of things with John and then he doesn't finish them, so
we just got lucky with
we just
this
got lucky with this one. But that makes sense. It's all coming back to me.
Some of them are a case of, like, I was waiting to watch more of them with you, and we never did.
Shh. You have plenty of time, friend. Shh. I forgive you.
I think a first interesting way we can start out discussing story is I'd love to know what y'all thought just like initially of an anime about running, like that the sport itself was like cross country running.
Oh boy. Well, the first thing I thought was, wow, running sucks. And then I watched episode 1 and I was like, nobody looks this intergalactical when they're running.
Intergalactical.
And then I was like, but you know what? I'm in it. I'm in for it. But like, even like as the show goes on, like I think that they do a really good job of really displaying like how much of a toll on the body like running actually is. So it's not like they try and and a lot of anime do this. They don't ever most cases sugarcoat the sport. So I think that also made it more likable for me, regardless of how much looking at people running triggers me, because I'm like, God, I just want to die just looking at you. I think they do a good job with the sport of making it grounded and realistic, which is something I like.
Exactly. What about you, John? Were you like enthused by the idea of an anime about people running, or were you like, I don't know about this?
I would not have watched this if it wasn't for the fact that Cassie kind of demanded I give it at least a couple of episodes, and like at the end of each episode she was like, are you enjoying it? Okay, there's more. Are you enjoying it still? Okay, there's more. And
let it be known, Cassie is a magic maker for getting people to enlighten themselves in the ways of anime.
Even when I don't remember it.
Yeah, but upon initial, like, after you swam this, I was gonna completely pass on it. I wasn't gonna watch it at all. I was just like, running, not interested. It's sports anime in general, not really interested. But yeah, it was your enthusiasm, Cassie's enthusiasm that convinced me to actually watch it, as well as her just forcing me to watch it while I was there and unable to run.
With the wind?
You couldn't run away! Ah! Puns!
Couldn't run with the wind?
Oh my god. For me, I actually at least was a bit intrigued about this being about running because one of my brothers ran cross country all through high school. And I ended up, being like 10 years old. I had to sit through a lot of those track meets. So it was never anything that like particularly interested me, but I was kind of familiar with that environment and just was like, okay, let's check this out. And then, what's just, after going through the anime, I feel like a marathon as, like, a way to frame this story was a really, like, good mechanism. Like, it led to some really good storytelling, just in the way that a marathon is structured. But we can get into that a bit later. But I think that it gave, you had all of these people, but they each did have a role to play in the end because of the way a marathon is structured. So it was cool because you knew that, like, to a degree, they all had to be incorporated.
Especially a relay marathon.
Mm-hmm. That's it, relay, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember that word. But yes. And then also just, like, as a story, do you both think that it was successful? Do you think that there were bumps along the way?
Oh, I think there were incredible bumps along the way, but everything surrounding those bumps, it just kind of was like going on like a cross-country trip, and you're just like observing all the beautiful scenery, and everything looks good, and then you hit like one little pothole, and it disrupts you for a moment, and you're like, whoa. What just happened? Is my car broke? Do I need to call AAA? No, we're good? Okay, let's go look at more scenery. Let's go. Let's just go have fun. Like that, like nothing in the story that bothered me was something that kept bothering me. Like, for example, I had a really hard time understanding the concept of time in the show. Like, for example, they would go from getting together as a team, which was fine, and then they had to go and do a meet, but then some of them would sit out and some of them would be part of it, but then they only had so long to train before a next thing. But the way that they show the training montages and all the character interactions in between, which totally take precedent, but it confused me sometimes, and I was like, okay, so when does Prince need to get his time up? Like, how much time do we have? Like, I was getting anxious because I'm like, I actually have no idea how many episodes we're going to have of them having actually a believable amount of time to practice. To me as a viewer believing, yeah, they totally can run that fast in this 2 minutes of time that has passed.
That's a good point.
That was one of the things in the story that kind of threw me a little bit. Also, the fact that they did get so much better in such a short amount of time also is a little strange to me, especially because they placed relatively high, even relatively early on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love an underdog story where, like, the underdogs do really great and they, like, triumph. Whether they triumph at the end or not, we'll leave that for a spoiler room. But overall, like, when they did win, I almost, in some cases, I felt a little cheated because I was like, okay, how did they get so damn good? And this is a problem I have with sports anime in general, but the thing is that this show is 2-core, so it had the benefit of having more runtime to make it more believable, whereas shows like Haikyuu for the first season were only, like, I think 12.
I can't remember, actually.
I think it was like 12 or 13. But, like, I just think that it could have used its runtime to make some of the achievements that they made throughout the story a little more believable, but that is a nitpick. Like, like I said, it's a bump on a really old country road that still looks fucking amazing, you know? It's not...
Yeah.
It's not a huge problem.
I think I agree. And I mean, alongside that, like, there definitely just were moments of suspension of disbelief for me in certain cases. And while I didn't have this particular knowledge to really critique it, I have heard from people that are actually more aware of, like, running times and stuff, that the times were pretty unrealistic.
Yeah.
But I don't have the experience for that, but I could totally see that. And like you said, sometimes you really were just like, I don't know about this. But okay, because yes, at the end of the day, it is an underdog story, and I agree with you. I am very weak to underdog stories.
It's an underdog story, and it's an anime. Like, there's just a point where you have to go, this is a television show made to entertain me, and they're using their tools to entertain me. So if they have to give somebody a really fast time for me to go, oh, look, my little baby's grown so much, then, I mean, go for it. But it's still going to make me scratch my head a little bit if it's an entire team.
Yeah. Especially all novice runners, which I guess is a double-edged sword to me because, like, yeah, some of the development definitely felt a little stilted. On the other end, I liked that, you know, we're seeing them grow from ground zero and kind of you do get that journey of them learning to run. And I think that also provided a little more for me to understand, like, the, like, how you start training to do running and, like, all of the things that you have to keep in mind. Like, you don't start immediately, just, like, you run for maybe, like, 10 minutes per day, then you do longer, and, like, gradually your training gets more challenging. Like, that was able to be shown because we had a lot of novice runners. But yeah, then there are just points where then you're like, accuracy. So it's kind of I think for me, that's like a double-edged aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not like we said before, it's not like a game ender or anything. It's not even a real detriment to the story. It's just there, and you just got to remind yourself not to lay real world physics into an anime, I guess. No matter how realistic it tries to be. I think that this is more of a haiku than it is a Kuroko no Basket, for example. It's more grounded in reality. But at the same time, like, if I can suspend my disbelief that a dude can, you know, magically move across a court without being seen so I can be entertained, then I can take a couple of weird numbers, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
In the end, that's one of the reasons I kind of dropped off Kuroko no Basket, because it just kept upping its ante. But for some people, that's a plus. So, yeah, realism is good, but it doesn't have to be completely real. That's why we're watching anime.
Yeah.
John, was there anything in the story that was, like, off to you, or did you find it mostly enjoyable?
Yeah. Not really anything else I can add beyond what was already said. There were definitely things in it that I appreciated that they did bring up. The only thing that continued to bother me was a certain character's form while running. Never seemed to improve beyond a certain point, and it still kind of bugged me that he was getting such good times while running in such a sloppy form.
I see.
But again, that was just like, okay, just don't pay too much attention to it. It's an anime.
I think also that's just part of his character. Like, it's his, it's not, if it's a character trait that they're using to, you know, suspend your disbelief or make you think, oh, like, that's him going again, good boy, going and running his own way, making his team proud. Like, I don't really have much of a problem with it, because again, like, we're watching an anime, I'm not going to look for perfect form. I'm pretty sure some of the ways that they swam and free were not 100% correct either, but, outside of inconsistencies with the sport, if we're talking about things in the story that were great, is I think that they, for a 2-core series, paced itself relatively well. Outside of me being confused of what time was happening, I never felt like it was going so slow I was bored, or so breakneck fast that I didn't understand anything that was going on. I think that they kept the ride at a relatively, like, medium pace.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that happened when you were at that medium pace, there could have been something, you blinked, you missed it, but it's not like it was a detriment to the story. I don't know if that analogy made any sense, but...
I think it did. I definitely think it did. I agree with you there on pacing. Because, there were just certain plot lines that would show up, like problems or concerns.
Mhm.
And oftentimes I'd be like, oh no, is this going to stretch into be, a 4, 5, 6 episode thing?
Yeah.
Which in some anime, that would be the case. But a lot of problems were solved in, 2 to 3 episodes, typically.
And people talk to each other in this show, which is so
Yes!
nice.
Yeah.
Like people be like, hey, yo, bro, I feel like I don't belong here. Here's why, A, B, C. And they'd be like, well, bro, you're so cool. Here's the reasons, A, B, and C. And, it's not that simple. But, people were able to talk and really see what their issues they were having were. And they found solutions for each other. Like, for example, there's a character who has a really hard time running, specifically because, 1, he's not enjoying it, and 2, he can't think of a way to run faster. So then another character says, oh, well, you like to do this activity. Let's infuse the 2 together. Let's have you run while you're doing your activity. And then maybe we can kind of, trick your brain into thinking you're having fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
that
works!
was a thing that happened. And...
That was a story highlight for me, by the way.
Same.
Oh, it was great. and it's great at making its characters, and we'll go into this later, but characters you never think would help out one character are the ones that step up and get the limelight occasionally. And I think that's really cool, outside of a couple of characters that kind of just don't do anything for most of the show, but then come out with a bang later. Most of the characters have some sort of pull in which direction the story is going to go, and it could be any of them. It's not, the mainstays of I.G and Kakeru every time. Sometimes it's the other characters taking the wheel for a little bit, and I always enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's something that I really want to champion Run with the Wind for, because I do feel like that sort of every team player has a stance in the pool is expressed in Kuroko and Haikyuu, but they also did that in a longer amount of time than per se Run with the Wind, which managed to do so pretty concisely throughout just 24 episodes. So good on them for that.
For sure.
Another thing, and I thought I emphasized this even more when you were talking about how people talk to each other. One of the big pulls of this story that really drew me in initially is the fact that it's a college setting.
Yes!
And we have college students of varying ages from 18, 19 to young adult to older, just a bit older. It's a really nice to have an aged up cast in that college setting.
And they're all different,
Yeah.
physical fitnesses and yeah, they said they're all novices to running, but even aside from that, they're from their own different backgrounds. You can tell, this one really doesn't get out very much at all. And that's reflected in their build and how they struggle. And this one's been smoking several cigarettes a day. Yeah, he's gonna have health issues and struggles in that regard.
And I would say... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And also, it's going back to the training that you said that they did the build-up. They also did also go to the point of showing it's not a case of training harder will get you better results. They did actually have a few few characters who were secretly going above and beyond what they were supposed to be, and it was actually being a detriment to them. And they kind of had a bit of but I am doing all the things, I'm doing more of the things than I should be, why is this not working? Because you're doing rest is a part of the training.
Yes. Actually, this show, I think, a lot more than a lot of other shows does emphasize that rest and balance is a part of the sport and training yourself and getting better, which is cool. And as you said, that they all come from, like, different backgrounds and they all have their own, like, lives as college students and their concerns and things that they're worried about. I feel like especially in the first half, they did a good job of, like, kind of still showing the other stuff that they were dealing with personally alongside, you know, becoming invested in running in the marathon. You still had, like, characters who were worried about, like, going and getting, like, job searches. You had characters who were like, I just want to party in my last years of college. You had, like, the studious ones who never missed a class, got all A's, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. And so it was nice that that was still incorporated.
I think that one thing in regards to story that also kind of is more of a nitpick thing, but also kind of frustrated me a little bit is you have these very interesting characters and they all come from different backgrounds, which means they would all have different reasons for wanting to run. And I think that the anime focuses on a select few on why it is they want to be there and be part of the team. And for the most part, does a really good job of building them into a team when at first they start as very separate entities. However, a few of them, I still have no idea why they decided to just stay on the team. Like there's a few of them I was like, okay, you were really opposed to this before, and now you're just here, I guess, because friendship, but that's not really part of your character. So I think that, like, the main core of the cast that definitely is explored thoroughly, you know exactly why, what their reason for running is, and it hits you like a fucking brick at the end of the show when you know what's going on. But a few of the characters, I'm like, okay, so why are you here? Like, give me a reason for why you stayed on this team. So I
think that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like a couple of them were, like, really glossed over. Some of them you didn't get to find out the reason until the very end of the show, and that is fine. Mm-hmm. But some of them I have no clue. I'm like, I liked you as a character. I'm happy you stuck around, but why did you stick around? Like, could you let me in? Could you give me the memo? But, like, it's not like a detriment. It's just like one of those things that I was scratching my head and going, okay, you're cool and I like you a lot, but what is keeping you here with me? I need to know. I need us to talk. I need us to know. I need to know this relationship is real. You know?
No, I think that's a really good point to bring up. And I think for me, by the end, when they're all, like, by the time that the marathon is taking place, I feel like I understand why, like, I feel like all of them just, like, to a degree needed some sort of push to do something in their lives. And I think that running is able to help form that. I think for me, the hardest thing was, like, in the earlier episodes, there was some really immediate turnaround, like, that just was not addressed at all until, like, sometimes nearly the end. Like, two characters in particular who literally one day were like, we don't want to do this. And the next day they were like, yeah, let's do this. And then I was just like, okay, I don't buy that per se, but okay, we're here. But at the end of the day, I think maybe even if it's not necessarily, like, being in love with running itself, it was, like, finding a sort of, like, higher purpose in, like, life a little bit. Just, like, the drive to do something, I guess. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like at the end, thankfully, they all, like, benefited from it. I think. But yes, we can dive deeper into that in spoiler territory. I know a place that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about stuff as characters, though.
Yeah, let's go.
We can move on to that. We should start by talking about our favorite characters. And John, I'm making you go first.
So I've put Kashiwazaki Akane as my favorite character, aka Prince. Or Oji-sama. As they refer to him throughout the entire series. The only reason why I know his name is because I got a character list up at the moment. But yeah, he is a skinny boy with an unhealthy lifestyle because he spends his entire time in his room reading manga. And that is what he do until he got almost threatened into running with everyone.
I think saying straight threatened is okay.
Yeah.
All things considered.
You got a lot of stuff here. It'd be a shame if you wasn't allowed to live here anymore. But yeah, we've probably alluded to him a bit already. Yeah, he has like the longest distance to cover effectively to get into shape. But something they did do really good was actually showing him get better in shape. He's still not like perfect, like fully, can keep up with Kakeru. No, he can't. But he's definitely a lot more healthier than what he was when he started. And I think they did a good job of portraying that in a number of ways. But like one of my favorite episodes was when Kakeru and Prince like finally started seeing eye to eye and discussing what was bothering each other about each other and coming to solutions and like becoming friends. Really, because they kind of weren't before that. They kind of butted heads a lot. And by the end of it, he had a lot of moments that really made me feel for him. And when he achieved his goals, I genuinely was like, yes! In my chair, in my room. And then kind of was like, I am screaming about this very pale otaku boy in this cartoon series in my room, but still.
So you wanted to root for him, right?
I really wanted to root for him by the end.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I think that Prince is like the undermost of the underdogs on the team. And I found him like very much early on in the show, his journey very compelling. And I will also say, he's also a mood. Mm. He's also a giant mood for us nerds who don't leave our houses and like go faster than a brisk walking pace. He's a big mood. Yeah, and he had some really good like jokes too that I liked, and sometimes he'd bring up like anime references and stuff.
Number of sports animes he referenced and like main character names that he name dropped that I recognize as well.
Yeah, I will say like there were a lot of times like when there was a scene or an arc that was very central to him, like during a lot of his moments, I cried. Mm. So he's good. I enjoy him, and I also agree that I think he's very worth cheering for. So yeah. Okay. Cassie, I'm not emotionally prepared, but how about you tell me about your favorite character?
Well, welcome to Cassie's fun, amazingly emotional ride. Please hold on tightly and make sure your seatbelts are firmly strapped before we begin the ride. Oh boy. Okay, so I liked I.G from the very beginning because he already presented himself as a very happy-go-lucky dude, but also somebody who knows what he wants and knows what he has to do to get what he wants. I do know that turned off a couple of people to the show initially. I know that, for example, our friend Pete watched the show and was like, wow, this guy's a manipulative asshole. And I'm like, you realize it's for comedy, right? And as the show goes on, I.G becomes kind of like the mother hen of the group. He's the one who cooks. He's the one who notices when people are having trouble and tries to, help adjust their running times, help adjust their workout routines, helps to try and make every single person on the team feel like they are part of the team. Oftentimes at the expense of his own health and well-being.
Yep.
Which becomes especially blatant in the later half. Not just in the way that he presents himself to the rest of the team. He doesn't typically, let people know when he's tired. But I think there's actually a specific episode where he gets sick and they have to, barricade him in his room. Because they can't trust him not to leave. Things like that. And especially in the second half when you dig into his backstory and find out how much much running means to him. Not just on a physical level, but also on a psychological level, of him being able to prove something to himself and to those around him. He becomes an extremely emotional centerpiece for the show. One of the shots of the show that I can't talk about now, but I'm sure we'll talk about in spoilers, but one of the shots of the show that made me cry the most was in the last episode when you find out whether or not he's able to finish or reach a goal that he's been putting his neck out for and risking everything for. And the emotional connection he has with a specific other character at that moment is so genuine and beautifully animated that I was a mess. The point I'm making is I.G is a very complex character. He's probably one of the most complex in the cast, probably next to Kakeru and a few of the others. He's definitely one of the ones that gets most of the limelight, but it's really well-deserved. The show would not exist without him. He is literally the center of my world and theirs. So there's that. Also, his character design is just very appealing. He has the best smug faces. And he takes care of his dog. So that's cool. That's rad. He's just a really good dude. He obviously has reasons for the things that he does, but he's not so perfect that he always makes the right decisions, especially when it comes to himself. And I think that that's really valuable, that they kept that intact with his character. He's not some all-seeing running god, as much as he likes to pretend Kakeru is. I think a lot of people view him that way, and he's really not. He's just as flawed as everybody else. It's just that he doesn't let... For somebody who brings everyone together, he's the one who tells people the least about himself. And I think that is a really interesting character build, and I want to know more about all of the inner facets of it. So maybe one day I can read the novel or something, because he's interesting. I thought that eventually, because he was one of the mains, I would eventually gravitate more to more side characters, because that's just how my life goes, especially with sports anime. There are very few where I value the main quote-unquote limelight characters over the others, but I.G is just so well written that I just can't. He's my boy. I love him. I'm just rambling at this point. Anybody can jump in.
If someone gave me a blank piece of paper and was like, write down what you think about Kiyose Haiji, Cassie just wrote my essay. So,
yeah.
So thank you for that. So if people pay attention to our cool social media, twitter.com/AndyChatbox, they might see that my icon right now is not Haiji, but Haiji is undisputedly my favorite character of this show.
Yeah,
basically
for
every single reason that Cassie mentioned. Like, he's so good. He is, he's the catalyst for everything, and I just was, like, moved to tears by the conclusion that he's able to have at the end of this show. So I cried about Prince. I often also cried at a lot of Haiji moments. Like, the two of them just made me cry. They broke the floodgates. They are absolutely great. My icon that I'm sporting today is Nira, who is Haiji's Shiba Inu dog that lives at the Chikuseso dorm, and honestly gets a really good amount of screen time for the show.
Yep.
He's just he's another great accessory. Like, oh great, let's add in a dog. We already have this like hugely diverse cast of characters, but hey, let's add a dog. If we added a cat, it'd be a show that just like is so successful that it yeets itself out of the universe. But alas, yeet. So, Nirda is really sweet. I am very weak to dogs, as longtime listeners most likely know, and almost every time Nira was on screen, it really made me smile. I like that, he and Haiji have this relationship where they get out every day in the morning and they run together. It's very sweet. And, one scene made me sad because Nira was sad. So let's keep that in mind. But to then move on to other characters, because I do think that it's worthwhile to talk about the other dorm mates as well, to what extent we can. It'll vary depending on how much exposure they had. But I'll start it off with talking about Kakeru, because I did not like Kakeru at the start of the show. I had a lot of trouble with him. And I think now, especially if I were to rewatch it, it's things that it's really like, okay, you are frustrating because there's a reason, but like in the early episodes, I was like, I just need this right now because I'm tired of dealing with how like cold Kakeru is, how like angry he is, how he just like really lashes out at like anybody who tries to be friendly to him. But then serious props for this show, because they develop him to me in a way that I think is pretty dang well, and I ended up really loving him as well as all the other castmates. So that was like a full turnaround.
Him and I.G lock eyes from across the room.
Oh my god. Aw. And that too, like you even mentioned with I.G, like, I think it's fair to say without spoiling, like if you look at the poster, you'll know that like Kakeru and I.G are the two main characters, and their relationship is really poetic by the end. I can't say exact reasons why for spoiler room, but like they have a great dynamic.
They do. And I think that as frustrating as Kakeru is at the beginning, once they explain like why he is the way he is, because they do, and I'm so glad that they did. I think that a lot of shows don't commit to really explaining why. And it doesn't have to be spoon-fed. They don't have to say, all right, open your mouth. We're going to put that character backstory right in your mouth. Open wide. No, like they don't spoon-feed you everything. They give you clips. They let you draw your own conclusions. But you know. You know what happened to him. You know why he is the way he is. And then when you go back, everything starts to make sense. He's constantly in a state of being triggered by things that he himself is not strong enough to overcome, but is able to do so once he's part of a team. And the first part of his problem is learning to be part of a team. So the solution to his problem is a problem in and of itself. And that's really layered and interesting and complex. And I love it a whole lot. It's good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like learning... Basically, like, I think something with his arc that I just found so profound is that, due to reasons, he has a lot of negative emotions, associated with running, which is something that he's good at, and he's able to just kind of, reach a place where running is something that he's able to enjoy for himself. And I just, like, I found that whole journey, like, really beautiful. He also, I think, for the people that are really more invested in, like, hey, I really want to see, like, the athleticism, the sportsmanship, the numbers and shit, like, Kakeru's arc is where you'll get some of that. Maybe more so than, like, the other characters. So there's that as well, if you really just want to see an athlete and their performance and stuff like that.
I do wish that they had kind of better resolved his antagonism that he has with the redheaded dude on the other team.
Yeah, they get that.
They do a good job of being like, here's a character. He is obviously a problem. Why is he a problem? They answer the question, but they don't give a solution, which, to be fair, in life you're not going to always have a solution. But I think it would have felt better to me for him, like, just to put a capstone on overcoming that trauma, to really put that I don't know if you'd call it a rivalry, but that tension behind him as well, by being, you know, the person who buried the hatchet. But
yeah,
we never got that, and that's okay. It's not a big deal. It's something I would have liked.
On the other hand, on that subject, it feels like Kakeru moves past it, but the guy in question is still trying to be a problem. And,
well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, the situation's never really resolved because Kakeru, who has overcome the situation, doesn't go and make an effort to bury the hatchet.
No.
Because the other dude definitely never will.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Sakaki sucks.
The other relationship I wish they'd gone more into is the do you remember his name? The like other runner who knew I.G, who was like really good.
Fujioka, I think.
Yeah,
Fujioka,
something like that.
yeah.
He was so fascinating, and he did not have a whole lot of screen time. I really wanted to see more of his relationship with I.G, especially, but also with Kakeru. I would have liked to have a few more scenes with them.
I liked his scenes with Kakeru fine enough, but I do agree. I kind of wished there was more about him and Haiji.
Yeah.
Because it's expressed and noted as something so strong, but like from the moment I got it was just like, oh hey, we're here. I'm associated with you. Look at me. Look at this. But it just wasn't given a lot of like depth. Yeah. I agree with that. And yeah, he served a very interesting purpose. Yeah, so let me think, I guess. Actually, I'm really curious to know thoughts on Yuki, going back to our Kansei track team.
Oh boy.
Because, yeah, Yuki's interesting.
Who wants to go first? Because I got words.
There was a moment involving Yuki towards the end, which is more spoiler room, but like made me just go, ouch. He's what to say. I think I'm best to leave you two to say because you're better with words than me.
I liked him by the end. I really liked his stretch of the marathon, and I cried. In the beginning, for me, he was just kind of there. And also, I think that potentially my view of him in the beginning is fuzzy. He might have actually done things that pissed me off, but like, I had a weird watching period with this show where I was watching it weekly for a while, and then I just like binged it. So, I guess at least on initial impressions, he was just kind of there, and he was very like, you know, he was often like very negative and stuff. But I liked him by the end, and I liked the development he got at the end.
He was one of them that was like, I'm opposed to this, I'm opposed to this, I'm opposed to this, I'm going along with it. What? When? Why?
Yeah. Yeah, I think somewhere along the middle, like his transition was made a little bit clunky. I feel like the stronger parts of his development were after, you know, he kind of finds himself more on board.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Cassie, hit us with those words, please.
So the thing is, like, I like Yuki. I do think he is a good character. I think that, like you mentioned, his run in a specific race that they do is really good. It's one of the most powerful moments in the show. A lot of the most powerful moments in the show are actually in a thing that they're in at the end, because I don't want to spoil it. But they are part of something towards the end of the show, and it's a race, and it's important, and they all have like little inner monologues and help us piece together what they're feeling at that exact moment in their time in their life. And they all and Yuki's thing basically comes down to lack of interpersonal connections with his family. Without going into spoilers, and I think that that's like a really big deal when you're going into your college years.
That's very true.
It was completely believable, and I totally got it. But and also a lot of his interactions with oh god, I'm forgetting his name, the gentleman who spoke a lot, Nico senpai. Their like little interactions with each other were nice, but he was one of the ones where I'm like, why were you still here? Like, why did you choose to run? Because like, at the beginning of the show, like, other people were blackmailed. Some people were given a real reason. He, like, literally was like, dude, I'm gonna be a lawyer, and I just want to spend my time partying and have a good time for the last couple of years where I get to be a kid.
Right.
And I don't think he ever really changed his mind on that. But then the next day, he still went to training. And I guess they kind of passed off as he was tsundere about the whole situation. But I don't really think that's the case. I don't know why he stayed with the team. By the end of the show, I know why he stayed with the team. But throughout, like, all the practices and everything else that he definitely didn't want to be there for, I don't know where the turning point was. And maybe I just wasn't looking good enough. But I was a bit confused.
I think it just came down to he got tired of Haiji pestering him all the time and just gave up running. Or running away from it, rather.
Yeah, like, I could see that. I could definitely see that as he's just like, well, you know, fuck it. I have, like, no choice at this moment. But, like, it is very stark, especially with, again, like, how negative and against it he
And
is
then
at the start.
suddenly he was like...
Yeah.
It was like... It did suddenly seem like he was being tsundere about it. It was like, no, I don't think we'll make it, but no, I'm here now, so I'll do it. Be the Barker.
I do like that he became the second mom, though. Like, he was always the one that's like, you know, for your health, you gotta be watching this stuff, and, oh, you know, you really shouldn't be doing that, you gotta be careful. If I.G's the mom, then Yuki's, like, the older sister or the second mom, or something.
Oh, he so is the oldest sister. Like, oh my god. He is.
Like, whether he wanted to stay part of this running family or not, I wasn't really convinced of, but his part in the running family, I totally get. Like, yeah, they did a good job of making him that kind of, like, One-sama of the group, who's always just the one to say, listen, this isn't gonna work, and this is why. And I liked that. I thought he was a good character. I just think the only thing that fell short for me was I had no idea why this dude, who honestly probably had no business running because he had a shit ton of other stuff he wanted to do, was there. But hey, I'm glad he was, and I'm glad that he got to have his moment to shine towards the end of the series, because it packs a punch.
Mm.
I think that sort of questioning that you had is definitely something that I had as far as King for a lot of the show. Mm. I didn't really understand why he was there for a long time, which again, I think was successfully rounded out by the end. But there was a lot of the time that I was like, okay, you're here because you're part of the team, but I didn't really understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not that I think he had anything against it, but I guess also because I felt like the point in his life, the stakes that he has, where he's, like, looking for a job, I feel like it would be very valid to be like, yo, I just gotta do this right now. Like, this is serious.
Yeah.
But maybe it was the fact that that is seen as a big challenge for him at the time.
Maybe.
So, who knows?
Who knows? Can we talk about Shindo next?
Yeah.
Because my homeboy Shindo, my soft boy Shindo, my good boy Shindo, had the best scene in the entire show. And I love him. Well, second best, maybe. I think I.G and Kakeru had the best scene. But one of the best scenes was definitely went to Shindo. And I think that it's important because for most of the show, he's seen as just the kind of nice boy, soft boy, always hanging out with Musa because they bros. And, you know, just having a good time, but also not necessarily the forefront of the action. He was kind of like the administrative assistant, like trying to get their website set up, trying to make sure that everything was going properly. But he never really took the front stage center until they're part of a race that they do. And it is the most agonizing thing to watch. But his perseverance and the reasons why he keeps pushing and putting all of the burden of what's going to happen, because if he fails, then they fail. Putting that level of burden on him and him being able to carry it to the very end was just a lot, and I cried. So I just wanted to say.
Yeah, I ended up crying at that too. I think there's also, like, I'll get more into it in spoilers, but I think also the challenges that he faces in that moment is also a product of him trying to put a lot of, like, burden and strain on himself without, like, you know, asking anything of, like, anyone else. So it's even more sex. It's like, oh, sweet baby boy, you're just trying to do so much.
He is. He really is.
Yeah. I enjoyed him a lot, too. I also think he got a fair amount of development before that point as well. There's kind of a little, like, mini arc in the earlier half with him, and just, like, kind of about his priorities and why he has this role on this team. Like, I understood why Shindo was there, you know? It was written very well. He's a good boy, and, I pretty much agree with you all the way through.
I don't have much else to say about Shindo because he's one of the characters that unfortunately got kind of shafted outside of his big scene. I don't feel like we got enough scenes of him and his family, which were his driving force. There's a scene that they have with his girlfriend at one point that kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That isn't explained very well. I mean, you can kind of infer what happened there, but it would have been nice to have been explored a little bit. And I also just wanted some more scenes of him and Musa, because they seemed like the closest, or Musa seemed like the closest character to Shindo on the team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to see more of their friendship and interaction. I just wanted to see them playing in the snow at Shindo's hometown. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Yep. We talked about that earlier, and I just agree completely. And on that note, I really like Musa a lot. I really appreciate that Musa's in the cast. That was another big push for me. It's like, this is really cool. We have a character of color. We have this engineering student who came here from Tanzania. That's so fucking cool. He's super duper sweet. That's really endearing. I love him. I wish that he had a more central arc of development, because a lot of times to me, it kind of felt like the writers didn't exactly know what they were doing with him. He had a lot of small moments, but it didn't all become very cohesive to me. Like, there's a really poignant scene about kind of his presence as opposed to other, like, exchange students on track teams, and kind of the societal, like, implications of that, and, like, his different stance, which was really, really cool. And then in another scene, he's, like, talking about this stupid love triangle. Like, you know, they kind of just shifted a lot of gears with him. I really appreciate him. I just wish that maybe the writing was handled a little better to make him, like, a little more cohesive.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't you say that there was a situation with him that was kind of offensive that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a joke about being so dark when you're black-skinned in the dark where you can't be seen.
Yeah.
And I was not a fan of that. I think that's just really offensive, especially because, like, honestly, back when I was in high school, there was a student of color who was who had very, very dark skin. And whenever the lights would turn off in our classroom, the kids would, like, shout his name and be like, "Where are you?"
Oh my god.
So
That's
to
gross.
have that in the anime really rubbed me the wrong way. It was a moment where I was like, I thought you were better than this show. But thankfully, only, like, that scene to me is the worst offender, and thankfully it's very short. There's also a joke in the first episode about, like, endowment that was a little but for the most part they portray Musa as also very self-aware. Like, there is a moment where he's like, hey, it's really prejudiced to think that way, you know?
Yeah.
So good on that. Like, he for the most part, I think, is, like, really well respected and well handled. There were just some things in part of the writers where I was like, please do better. Please do the best.
There was also a moment later on where he and Kakeru were hanging out and overheard others talking about, you know, certain prejudices towards him, and Kakeru got pissed off and went to try and defend him.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, it's fine. I'm used to hearing this crap. And so...
Yeah. I also just love the fact that he, again, amidst the sea of, like, it is typical that there will be a lot of international students that are here for athletics, but Musa is there for engineering. He's smart. He's intelligent. Like, it's just awesome to kind of have that position for him.
Yeah, because he didn't come to the school for running at all. He just came there to be the smart little soft boy he is.
Yeah, and I actually would have been really happy if his arc was more centralized on his friendship with Shindo. That would have been great.
Or, I don't know, a weird science experiment that went wrong. I don't give a shit. Just, like, I was running so much that I missed my final, and now I've got to go and do so. I don't know. I have no idea, but it would have been nice to see more of Musa's personal life.
Yeah.
In any regard. Yeah. Or even, like, I don't think we ever get, like, any, like, conversation about his relationship with his family, because that's, like, Shindo's big thing. So it'd be interesting if they had that in common. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, being far away from their family.
Yeah.
Oh god, now I'm just soft at these possibilities. Yeah, I agree completely. What did we think about Nico-chan, senpai?
I like him.
I like him,
Me
yeah.
He didn't deserve that long pause.
No, he didn't.
I think it's cool that out of all of the reasons people had to start running, he had the most practical one. He was a little chubby, and he smoked all the time, and he wanted to be healthier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. I also like that the way that he handles his nicotine addiction when he tries to quit is he makes these little sculptures out of like little pieces of tin or whatever. And they're popular enough to like I guess sell for something. But like the fact that he's like putting his foot forward and saying no, I'm going to make a difference in my life, and that the situation with him and the team is more so for his own personal growth, even though he definitely adds to the cast. Like he's one of the few characters outside of I.G and Kakeru where we very early on get to see that he has his own goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's rad. Of course, other people's goals are explored, but his are very blatant and very early on. It's also unique that he's so much older than them by at least a few years.
He also tied up his remaining pack of cigarettes in rope bondage, which amused me.
Aww. I really liked his backstory, and just kind of in that way, like that, like you said, he basically has a stake to kind of do things for the future in the way that he wants, you know, despite what other people or like society may think. And I'm proud of him for what he does. He is very good.
Yeah,
he is.
He's ended up being a really heartwarming arc in the end.
Okay, I was like, who are we missing? And then I remembered we're missing probably the characters that I have.
We're not missing anyone.
We're not missing anyone!
Nope. The only
Just
other things I
breath.
remember were vague spaces of horny air. That's all I remember.
Ugh, yes, and it's unfortunate that those vague spaces of horny air have names, and they are fucking Joji and Jota. They're the twins, who for me were definitely the hardest characters to buy into, and I still don't really.
Remember when I said that there were bumps in the road in the story? They each are basically a pothole the side of the Grand Canyon. Like, they are the one time in the story where their motivations via their characters derail one of the most emotional moments in the entire fucking show, and I hated them for it. Because you have all of these beautiful moments of monologue and interpersonal, like, connections and looking into yourself and really finding what it means to be alive and to run and to embrace something so above yourself, and then they're just girl.
Mine. Just, ugh.
I hate it!
Like, even before that moment, I was like, your comedy relief, and like, a lot of the times you're not succeeding in that front for me, even. Like, they're just there. They just feel like space fillers to me.
Yeah.
And then, it's like there is the opportunity to do well with them near the end, and it doesn't really do anything.
Like, even the comic relief part, like, I probably laughed harder at other characters and the jokes that they brought up than anything that the twins did, and just
yeah.
Prince was funnier with running than they were in the entire
Yep.
Yep. But yeah, like, I think the thing that frustrates me most about the twins is they try and give them like a little arc that kind of like derails the team for a bit, where they're like, oh, I don't know if we should be doing this. I don't know. And it's like, why? Like, there's no real reason given except for one of them, like, has a bad thought or something, and then the other one just agrees, and they're like, oh, we should just go play soccer. Like, why?
It was dumb. I didn't like it either.
And then when they finally were convinced, oh, no, we're part of the team, we love the team, and then, like, I can't remember which one it was, Joji or the other, that was like, oh, man, I respect my brother, and I just want to, help him achieve his goals, and he's so important to me. And I'm like, okay, there's finally some good fucking food.
Jota.
Right.
And then that nice plate of food got dropped into the sewer where we spent the rest of the episode.
Yep.
Because all they care about is getting their dick wet. And you know what? I salute you if that's your goal in life, but maybe keep it out of my sports anime, alright?
And I mean, you're right. It's there from the beginning. Like, their whole they're just like, oh, the only reason we'd do a sport is for, like, hot girls. And then that's really it. Like, that's really all there is to them. And it's so disappointing. I've seen enough anime, not really sports anime, but I've seen other anime that do a really good job with A, utilizing twins for comedic relief, but also B, really giving them their own personalities, which just makes you enticed in them. All around High School Host Club, for example. But, like, these two absolutely fail at, like, being successful anime twins that I enjoy, so.
They're not even really supportive as brothers, really. Except for that one monologue where I actually, for a moment, believed I gave a shit about them, and then... And honestly, like, I guess we can talk about Hana in the same breath, but, like, it feels like she... Like, at first I was like, okay, fine, she's, like... This problem happens a lot in sports anime, is you'll have the female manager or the female whoever, and then she's just there to get some of the boys hot and riled so that they'll want to perform well, and that's her only purpose to exist. There are some shows that don't do this. I think one of the things I liked in Kuroko no Basuke was that the female manager was very, like, I mean, she had her own little weird fetish or whatever, but she seemed very, like, I don't take shit kind of thing.
Oh yeah, Riko's fucking awesome. And she is technically the manager, but she's actually their coach. Like, they call her coach. She does all the planning and shit. It's good.
Yeah, so she's like a rare instance of a female in a sports anime that does shit. I mean, Go and Free is alright, but she doesn't do a whole lot either. And then, like, if you're not going to do anything, then your point to exist is just to be the hot manager, hot coach, whatever. And it's very rarely anything else. And Hana, unfortunately, falls right into that trope of, I have no personality outside of, I want to help. Oh, I have a crush on one of these twins, but which will it be? Honestly, if they at least answered that question, I would have felt a little bit better. Spoilers before the spoiler room, because it pisses me off. Nobody knows. Except Musa.
Yeah.
Musa knows.
Yeah.
He's the only one that does know, and he refuses to say because he promised her he wouldn't, which is good on Musa, but fuck you, seriously.
Like the one way, not the one way, because I don't think anything could, like, super redeem her, but, like, the one thing that I was like, maybe they'll make me happy with this is, honestly, if they just answered and she said both. Because I'm like, you know what, girl? Fuck yeah, go for your polyamorous kids. Like, I am down for that.
Yes! I would love if she was like, listen, I think that you two both try really hard, and I think it's cute that you both have a crush on me. I love when a man loves me, and you both are just the best. Why only have one when I can have two, baby? Like, sure.
Yeah, like, that'd be so good.
but the thing is, like, it wouldn't even be that bad if they didn't try and completely fucking take the bike and veer it onto a back road. Because, like, for 5 to 10 minutes, we're just following Hana going from spot to spot in the race to see who she's cheering for. And it's never shown anyway, so why waste my time?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah, I think that just terrible, terrible writing. Can you please, for our lovely listeners out there, describe what you think Hana is? You used a phrase earlier that I was very happy with.
A piece of stale bread.
Ooh, the stale is new. That's refreshed in current anger, I see.
It's because it's a stale trope. It's stupid and it's dumb.
That's very...
And I'm
very
so
true.
happy that we got some yummy, yummy Malibu tonight, because I'm gonna need a fucking stiff drink after remembering the rage I felt while watching those. Like, when I was talking to Cammie about it earlier, I was pretty chill, but now I'm, like, reliving every single moment of that stupid episode, and that stupid panning, and the stupid will they, won't nobody cares!
And
yeah.
And the bit of... No, I'm gonna have to say that. I'm gonna have to say that for
In
spoilers.
Okay.
Because there was something else about that whole situation that really pissed me off as well.
Well.
Can we do one more? Huh? One more character?
Oh.
Yes.
I loved that their coach, the old dude, was not really their coach, but he was just there the entire time going, oh, you crazy kids. doing your thing.
I'm not as young as I used to be.
I love that he's like the messenger at one point.
Yeah, like he's on the megaphone or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, what do you want me to say?" That was another thing that fucked me up, was that Kakeru's message to one of the twins was, "Do it for her," and I'm like, "Oh my god!"
If you love her, then
the sad fucking part is he wouldn't have ever sped the fuck up unless he heard something like that, because he's that basic. Me off.
He's like, you just had to say it and fuck it up for him.
Yeah, it just doesn't make much sense. It doesn't make sense with what we're talking right now. You'd have to know in context what we're referring to, so I won't say it's a spoiler. But yeah, I just wanted to give a top off to the old dude whose name I forget, but he was there for the whole ride with these crazy fucking kids.
Tazaki.
And and he's good, and I like him, and he's old. And he's cool. I like old grandpas in anime. I just want them to sassily punch people around. He didn't ever do that, but I kind of was hoping he would.
That would be pretty great. Okay, well, as far as if there is remaining flames of anger from our last topic of discussion, hopefully they can be cooled a little bit as we move on into the production of this show. So I am nowhere near the caliber of Craig, who hosts the famous Craig's Credit Corner on this show. I did pull up a couple of little just like factoids off of Wikipedia.
Credit Corner.
I'm so honored. I got a sung intro by Cassie. All right. Well, that said, hopefully these won't let you down. So I really just did notice that Run with the Wind is based on a novel that was written by a woman named Shion Miura, and it was published in 2006 and won the Naoki Prize that same year. So it won like a big literature award.
It's awesome.
It's also been hell yeah. It's also been adapted into a manga, a live-action TV show, and a series of live-action movies prior to the anime. So it's big. Like, it's very well known. So good for her. I'm also, I don't have enough research to know how many sports anime are, or sports series are by female authors, but like, hell yeah, that's awesome. So I appreciate that fact a lot. And the only other thing that I will note of personal interest is that I.G's voice actor is the same voice actor who portrayed Yuri Katsuki in Yuri on Ice. Oh, so no wonder I loved him from the beginning.
Of course! I did not know that until this very moment, and it makes complete sense.
Yes.
Oh,
heck yes.
My Lanta.
All right, but yeah, we could totally get into the production. I really want to know y'all's thoughts on the art and the visuals.
I love them a whole lot.
Even
I think the character designs are really unique.
Yes.
Like there was a couple of times where the characters went a bit off model, but I think that it kind of played into the scene because it tended to be when characters weren't feeling 100% for one reason or another, and so it kind of reinforced that they are not in perfect shape, and it made them like look like they were worse off than they were trying to pretend to be, I guess.
I feel you very strongly on that point. There were moments definitely of like off-model characters, and I was like, this is weird, but then also at the same time, often it was like, no, it makes sense because like the situation they are in right now does not feel good. So like having it be portrayed with some visuals that are kind of wonky or like just like weird to look at, like it honestly, I think, played off better in this show and the context of this show than if it was a situation in like certain other anime, like also even just like sports anime.
Cammy. We all know it's because all of the production went to the dog in between. I don't know why I'm whispering. I just wanted to keep that up for as long as I can. But, like, we all know. It's okay.
That was fucking incredible. That's true. Nira never looked off model. Was always rendered in perfect facial perfection, which I do appreciate.
There was even a moment where Nira was portrayed as being all teary-eyed, happy for the team for succeeding in whatever goals that they were at the time. And I was like, oh, even the dog is crying and happy tears for them.
Oh my god. We'll get back to the entire production, but yes, I think they drew Nira very well. I love the fact that Nira was used to transition from the segments of the episode. So he was like the little in-between card. Catch. And the eye catch, yes. And it was just such a delight for me every single episode. Like each time there was a new one, I'd be sitting out there and then gets on his computer and I was like, oh, he rolled around on the floor! In this one, he's chasing a butterfly! In this one, he just turns around and he doesn't bark, he makes a whiny sound! What a sweet boy! And gets like, okay, I get you. So, hey, that's a production aspect I appreciated.
For sure.
You know another little thing, actually, that I really loved was how their hair, like, gravitated and, like, flounced in the wind. Like, you know, how it would just kind of, like, move upwards? That was so cool.
Yeah.
To go back to, like, the running animations, and sometimes they weren't feeling good, I just appreciated that a lot of the running, outside of the CG and gigantic crowd runnings, seemed to be mostly 2D animation. And just because I love to bash this show as much as I can, no running will ever look as bad to me as it did in Suki ga Kirei. So, so in comparison, Run with the Wind can do no wrong.
Oh my god.
God, that show sucked. Anyway.
It did.
But yeah, I think that for the most part, you guys have already explained, like, that they utilize even the weird janky animation for reasons. Like, most of the stuff in this show is done for reasons. Yeah. Like, even when they have the really big race at the end that they're doing in a big group, there's a lot of CG running crowds. But I just was like, that's fair.
And
like,
and honestly, that CG crowd doesn't look, it like, it's noticeable that it's CG, but it doesn't look horrible. I've seen worse CG crowds.
I mean, yeah, I didn't think it looked good, to be fair, but at the same time, it's just one of those things where I was like,
yeah,
you know, that's fair. Like, expecting them to 2D draw every single person in, like, 100-person race is ridiculous.
Yeah, especially nowadays when the CG is that cheap that they can just go, okay, person, randomize colors, whatever, go.
That also means that they had more of a budget to put into scenes that they really wanted to look beautiful. Some stands out are, for example, when I.G first sees Kakeru running. There's this really beautiful, like, weird intergalactic scene of fucking Kakeru running away from a... The thing is, that scene made me laugh, too, because I.G's, like, staring at him in awe, and then 2 seconds later, you just see this guy running after him going, fucking thief! What the fuck?
Right?
But I think that moment was just, like, so beautifully animated. And one of the last scenes in the anime where, like, Haiji and Kakeru, like, just look at each other, and there's just so much emotion that's shared. It's so much information just shared between the two. And that one fucking second that I was like, I can forgive anything else the show has done. I've lived for this one moment. And it was so beautifully done. The music, like, stopped. Like, things, like, everything in that scene became so ambient. And they do this all the time. There was another scene when you go back to Kakeru's past, and a lot of it is shot and distorted as a memory.
Yes.
But the way that it's presented is almost like you're watching, like, an old, grainy film, because, like, that's what it is. It's such a impactful part of his life, but it's far away, but it's still affecting him, and the sounds and everything. Because, like, most of the time when flashbacks happen, they'll have that, like, little kind of, like, film roll effect, but then everything's in, like, normal color, everybody sounds normal, but they, like, fully committed to making that entire scene so strangely off-putting that it like, its delivery was just chef kiss. But yeah, I'll stop talking now. I'm gushing too much.
That moment specifically, and then another moment of using a sound effect of what I would call like a squeaky wheel. I'll just say that. Like both of those examples to me are definitely like more experimental than I see a lot of sound production in anime.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm just so happy that they had the guts to do that because it was so effective.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where I was like, I was not expecting this, but damn, like is it affecting me? Hell yeah. And then another sound mixing moment that, again, made me feel uncomfortable is like specifically you just hear this character breathing as they're running. Oh my god! I was in so much pain. Like, you feel that shit, man. It was so well done. So well done.
Like,
on the...
also, like,
On the... Oh, yeah.
character, like, other sounds, like, fading in and out as their concentration wanes from, like, what's actually going on, or, like, they're so focused on what's ahead that they're blocking everything else out, or, like, their mind has wandered off somewhere completely different and they need something to bring them back into the moment. They, like, the way the sound just shifts in and out for those moments was really good. Like, the sound as a whole was done really well, and I don't think any of us have actually mentioned music at all.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's your turn, babe. Go for it.
Okay, so to give you guys a little bit of perception into my life, I work at an office job. I promise there's a point to this. I work at an office job, and I basically sit at a computer all day, mindlessly putting in numbers, information, credentialing providers, blah, 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 blah. None of that matters. So normally I listen to podcasts. Recently, Cammie brought it to my attention that she was putting together a playlist of a bunch of anime music, and I'm like, I'm gonna mix things up. So I was listening to this playlist, and all of a sudden, the first ED of Runnin' With the Wind started playing, and I had to do everything I could to not start crying at my desk, because it's just like, that song is all about moving on from bad places in your life and seizing the moment and just going on, and I'm just sitting there at my dead-end job depressed. And I'm like, this song means so much to me. I think I gave it like my favorite ED of last year or something like that.
Yes. Yes, you did.
That song still makes me emotional every time I hear it. I think that the OPs are also good, and I think the second ED is also really good, but it's the first ED that is going to stick with me for years. Like, that song, in the visuals as well, but it's just so perfectly made for this anime. And I just have a lot of feelings. Also, the music and composition overall throughout the show is just good, but that ED.
So for the composition, actually, the soundtrack is done by Yuki Hayashi, who has been a composer for other anime. Notably, he's also the composer for Haikyuu's soundtrack.
Shit!
So, yeah. So that, I think, explains a lot about, like, why for me, and tell me if you agreed, but, like, I think that when the soundtrack needed to get emotional, like, that's also what really played into making me cry, is, like, they just knew how to fucking, like, eat at these emotional scenes by having that emotional soundtrack.
Yep.
It was just, like, really beautiful and moving.
And they always knew when to shut the soundtrack off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, like, ridiculous. I will say, though, as a small little nitpick, I love Unison Square Garden. But for some reason, I was not crazy. Like, I think the OPs were good. But they weren't, like, my favorite OPs ever.
I agree with you.
Yeah, like, I Unison Square Garden is godly. Like, they're opening, I think it's, like, the second season of March Comes In Like a Lion. I can't remember if it was the first or second OP they did, and I just, like, I'm in tears every time I watch that OP. Even though it's mostly hopeful, and the song is just really good. But for some reason here, it's just, like, it just didn't hit me as much. Like, I wasn't so excited to watch the the opening every time. I did.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as, exciting as I had hoped it'd be. But they were still good. They were alright.
I agree with you completely. Even on just the Unison Square Garden piece, like, they, I will die on a hill probably saying that Sugar Song and Bitter Step is like one of my absolute favorite anime endings of all time. And I also actually really like their Welcome to the Ballroom opening. The first one's really good, but like, yeah, this one just didn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad, it just like didn't do anything. And then the second one, the first time I heard the second one, it was a lot for me. I think I get very tilted when songs go through kind of like rhythmic and like very tonal shifts. Like they have shifts that doesn't all just kind of flow together. Like for example, the song, actually, no, I won't get into that. But basically, it just felt to me like that song was, like, very different in, like, 3 different parts of it.
Yeah.
Like, the beginning of it, to me, doesn't sound like the part where they're going, go and take me out. Like, that, those two sound completely different. And so the first time I heard it, I was like, this is a lot. I'm gonna have to get used to it. I did get used to it, and I enjoyed it, like, fine. But, again, like, I think the endings in this show were stronger for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, first ending entirely for all the reasons that you listed. The second one... kind of when I saw it in conjunction with the visuals, like, I got really attached to. There's, like, a scene of just Kakeru's silhouette, like, running in the sky, and then all of a sudden it becomes all of their silhouettes running in the sky, and it just really gets me.
It was good. Like, the second ED was also really... I think the first one is the one that's going to stick with me for, like, the rest of my life, probably, but the second one is, chef's kiss. Still fucking amazing.
Yeah. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the EDs much more than the OPs, and definitely the first ED more than the second.
It's all good stuff.
I end up having to marathon it, so I end up having to skip them a bit more than I would have liked, but definitely want to track down those EDs and add them to my MP3 player at some point.
You can buy them. You can go get them. They're available.
Heck yeah.
Go purchase them. Go get them. They're worth all your money.
Please.
Yeah.
Voice acting we haven't talked about, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an English dub of this? I don't think there is.
Not yet to my knowledge.
Yeah. I think that this show could really benefit from a dub. I think that this would be a great gateway anime for a lot of people. I think that
honestly,
because it's like it deals with an older audience and it doesn't have like any fan service really.
I also just really think that sports anime that successfully tackle a sport that is like very common understood by like Western audiences should automatically just get an English dub. Like I think it just makes sense for being a crossing point. That said, Haikyuu only recently got a dub, and Kuroko still doesn't have a dub. So I'm like, y'all should get on this untapped market, okay?
Is this just a sports anime? Anyway, the Japanese cast was phenomenal. I did not know about Haiji's voice actor, and that just makes me love him even more.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember most. I did not look up the cast before I came here because I'm sloppy and unprepared. But I will say that there was not a single voice that I felt did not match their character. I think actually this is one of those shows where they purposely picked, I mean, I'm sure they do this for everybody, but this one just seemed like they went that extra mile to go, yes, this voice fits this personality perfectly. You are the one. Because I don't always get that from every anime I watch. Sometimes I'm like, I mean, it fits, but like, I don't feel like, I feel like this voice could be done differently and it would have been better. That doesn't happen in the show. Like, everybody's perfectly cast, in my opinion. Like, everyone's so good. So good.
I agree. And I think they all delivered on emotional lines when that was necessary. Like, their emotional delivery was really, really good and really captivating.
Also, the twins do have different voice actors to each other, but they still sounded like twins.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they had to do the speaking in unison shit too, and that's also never easy. So good job.
There's also a lot of like lines where people are talking while they're running. So that was also really well done. I remember when Prince was trying to just get words out while he was running, and it just Also, in a lovely part of production, he has the best shirts.
His shirts for moods as well.
I just want all of his shirts. I also would like his beautiful hair and eyelashes. But
Prince in his prime environment is gorgeous. He's absolutely gorgeous. So
he is.
Good job on that.
He is the pretty boy I wish I was.
Oh man, especially for his lifestyle shit.
Oh god, yeah, Jesus. I wish my skin looked that nice. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, I think the voice acting was just amazing. And I mentioned earlier on, but I think also like the character designs in this show are very unique. Outside of Kakeru somehow.
Yeah,
Kakeru looks like a million other like characters that I've seen in anime sports shows, but then again, like he looks very much like a person in Japan would look. Like he has a very like a normal kind of design to him, which is totally welcome in anime. I just think like when you like compare him to Prince, it's just very funny. But yeah, everybody else, including I.G, who also seems like to... Sometimes their character designs kind of confuse me of who was talking, because they both have, like, short black hair. So that was kind of a problem, but when they would get close up, like, their faces are different enough, the clothes they wear, their expressions are so different that I only really confused them at long pant shots, and I'm sure that would have happened with any character who had similar colored hair and features. So...
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the character designs and voice acting were great, along with everything else that was great. Everything about this production is great, minus the CG crowds, and the openings not being as hype as I wish they would have been.
Yeah, I like for all the flaws that I have in production, again, they really kind of come down to being nitpicks. So like, good job overall. And again, I'm not surprised. It's Production I.G. I had an even more therapeutic moment where I was like, production-wise, this show honestly succeeds in everywhere that Welcome to the Ballroom absolutely failed. So thank you, I.G, for like getting back on your shit. Like, thank you. This is what I expect from you.
Production I.G, you okay, buddy? Yeah, we good. Oh, especially because it's too core. Like, when shows get, like, stretched out, you'll normally get, like, 1 or 2 episodes that are really good, and then, like, a few janky episodes. And while I think that there were some episodes that they definitely cut some corners with some stills and, you know, moderate use of, like, movement, but, like, nothing felt like it stood out as a glaring flaw that, you know, most other shows don't already do themselves. Cheap anime tricks are there because they work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stills during montage scenes, I'm so desensitized now, I don't even think they're a problem unless they run on for longer than 5 minutes. So.
Yeah. Stills during montage scenes versus stills doing full dance routines. There's a big difference. One of those can be forgiven. One of them can't. But yeah, I agree completely. So on a whole, I'd say that is it's a good thing. There was also some really good, just like scene composition. Being very vague about it, there's a scene with a character where they are, experiencing just kind of like feeling a lot of emotions. All you see is the bottom half of their face, and you kind of see their lip quiver, and then you see a shot of what they're looking at, and that shot slowly fills with this kind of like fog and softness to it, which like implies that the character is crying, and I thought that was so nice. I thought that was so nicely done.
Yeah.
I heard.
Yeah, so, yeah, good stuff.
Also, Cammy, I just want to let you know I am very proud of you for taking this great anime and using it as an excuse to dunk on an anime that failed you in the past. Because that just seems to be the theme of the evening.
I mean, I realized, like, I had an epiphany, and I was like, wait, this is everything that Welcome to the Ballroom is not. Wow. And then it just,
It's like you're looking at a classroom full of sports anime, and you're like, I love all of my kids the same. And then out of the classroom, you're like, I don't care for Welcome to the Ballroom.
Exactly. That being said, should we move on into ratings?
I suppose so. We gotta get off the fun chain eventually and all run away as fast as we can in the wind.
I get to go last because I passed it, so which one of you wants to go first?
I say John goes first.
You love being, like, the middle or, like, second. It's just like with MEP parts.
I like being the ham in the sandwich.
Aw, that's cute. That's super cute.
I'm just gonna go say I like this series. Not strong enough to give it a love it, but still I really, really enjoyed this series. Definitely a strong like it. There's so much good about this series. So many enjoyable characters here. There were some not so enjoyable moments, some bits that were like, okay, but why? But overall, I still really enjoyed the series. I wish I'd given myself a bit more time with it, but that was my bad. But I was still able to finish watching it in time, and had enough time to process what I'd watched, so... yeah, so many enjoyable characters, so much care put into the production. Even the flaws are kind of used in ways that actually work. And any detriment to it is just nitpicks. Overall, it's just on a personal level. I can only feel like I can only give it a like it, but it's still a very strong like it.
Cool. All right, I'm prepared again to A, get very emotional and in agreement, but also B, just like not be able to top this next review. So Cassie, throw it at me.
Oh God, I hope I don't let you down.
No, you won't.
God, now I know how Prince feels when he's running a fucking marathon. Doesn't want to let anyone down.
Move forward.
I think that this series is just one of the best in its genre. It just is. It's so good. It's so full of all of the things that I love about sports anime that we talked about earlier on. It's one of the more grounded in reality shows. It's got amazing character designs and amazing production. And albeit it had moments that kind of made me fall off the fun boat, mostly due to the twins. However, in the years that I have been, in the last couple of years that we've been reviewing anime, I've started to learn that one detriment should not and will not ruin an entire production for me if there are multiple moments that are just absolute perfection. And there are so many of those in this show. The people who were working on Run with the Wind absolutely and unabashedly loved the source material and wanted to give it a proper adaptation. And they did. There's just so much bleeded love into every single frame of some of these scenes that you can tell somebody was there with their coffee and their pen in the middle of the night pulling those extra hours to make that moment when Kakeru and I.G meet eyes be the most lasting image in your mind weeks after watching the show. And I just love this show a whole lot. It made it onto my top 10 list last year, I think twice. One for its ED and one just overall. And that was just based on the first half. I think that the first half of this show is just a mastercraft in what it's trying to do. I think that it has some of the most likable characters I've seen in a sports anime. And I think that it very easily with time could be something that could bring more fans into the anime fandom. If we could get an English dub and I could sit down a lot of people from high school. But anyway, I just love this show a whole lot. I didn't come up with a great, good catharsis because the more I think about the show, the more I want to say. And then I have to realize that I'm sharing this space with two other people. And I need to not gush for 2 hours. It's an amazing show, guys. You really should watch it. There's no reason you shouldn't unless just sports anime aren't your thing. But I think that even in its genre, it's a breath of fresh air because it is within a college setting. It's with a completely different set of morals and goals. And honestly, like, the stage that they take towards the end is one that they earned through blood, sweat, and tears. And I felt like, even though it felt a little contrived, they earned it. And I love the show a whole lot. That's all I got.
Amazing.
I try.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. There are so many just unique things that this show does as an anime as a whole and as a sports anime, which again, to me, I love that it's a college setting. I love that it's such a diverse cast of characters. And I also came to really love the sport that they take place in. I think there's something really poetic in the fact that running can mean so many things to so many different people. Running can sometimes be something negative. You can be running away from problems and challenges. You can be running without direction, or you can be running and moving forward. And I think that this show really emphasizes, honestly, it kind of hits on all of those points, but definitely really shows you the strength of putting your all, like your passion, your love, your energy, your time, all into one thing, and just like finding a reason to live and move forward and do things for yourself. I was kind of like, I've been in a depressed funk lately, and I think one reason that I reacted just so emotionally to this show, like, was one, because I binged the last half, but B, it was like really a moment amidst where I'd been feeling a lot of monotony that I could just really find some release. So I was a sobbing mess at the end of the show.
Me too.
Yeah, it hit me very powerfully. And when it really comes down to it, there's a line that I.G says that I think really encapsulates why I love the teamwork of this show and the way that it's structured, where he says, we're all moving forward, we're just landing at different goals. And I think that, yeah, and I think that's just so true, and why this show is such a beautiful thing is it means it's a journey, and the journey is different for every single character. And I think primarily, outside of certain characters, lesser, it's just a thrill to watch them. It's a thrill to watch them and cheer for them. And so I think this show absolutely succeeds as a sports anime, and I can't give it anything less than a love it. And I want more people to watch it. Like, really bad. Like, this show, honestly, is very underrated at this point as a sports anime.
For real!
Please give it a watch.
Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so many people love sports anime, and I was surprised at the sheer amount of, like, non-people talking about it.
Exactly. There's not that presence of, like, people talking about it as much as I would expect, and it's so disappointing. So
I am sad.
Too many people going, it's just running. It's more than that.
Yeah. I mean, it even just has the Production I.G and a lot of Haikyuu staff pedigree, so it's like, there's no reason I can think of that it, like, is so underrated. So yeah, if you take any stock in what we say, please give it a watch, because we all gave it some pretty good review. Yeah. And for recommendations, this one's pretty short and simple. If you do like particularly the storytelling and the writing in this show, then I would recommend you check out Fune wo Amu, or The Great Passage, which is a book about a team, particularly of like older adult men that are working together to make a dictionary. So it's a big project with a lot of people, again, moving towards one goal. It's by the same author of Run with the Wind, and that's really the prime reason that I recommended it. But I also do recall some very strong visuals from the episodes of this show that I have seen. And I've also heard it's gotten, really, really good reviews, but is underwatched. So maybe you could check that one out.
God, it's on my shame list. I've been wanting to watch that show for years.
Yeah, I need to restart. I remember I actually really like the opening to that show as well. Maybe I'll find it later. Okay, and we are going to have a spoiler room today, but before we do that, I'm going to lead those of you who don't want to listen to spoilers out with some social links. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so at twitter.com/AnnieChatbox, or if email's your speed, you can send us an email at anniechatmail@gmail.com. We're available to listen on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, latest, Spotify, and YouTube as always. And if you are thinking that you might want to help support us even further, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/AnnieChatbox. We've been working to really upgrade our tiers, and we're always welcome to feedback as far as things that you would like to receive for rewards. Shout outs to the Patron Box crew, Sarah, CorpsyAnn, Carol, Suki, Paul, and TroubleClef. Seriously, you guys are a huge help, and you make us massively happy. Thank you for all that you do.
The Patron Box crew. That's amazing.
The Patron Box crew. We'll come up with a nickname for y'all. You deserve it. If you really felt like, wow, something in this episode is missing, it's probably because Craig was not here and you miss him desperately, as we do every day. So if you want to get your Craig fix, go check out Save Our Progress at soundcloud.com/saveourprogress for more awesome, all-around nerd interest and lifestyle podcasts. Recently, they did an anime movie night with our one and only Cassie featured when they reviewed... What was it, Cassie?
Summer Wars.
Whoop whoop. I listened to that. It's very fun.
I liked that episode. Also, fun fact, we reviewed Summer Wars as one of our first anime reviews on this podcast.
Yeah, I got kind of tilted hearing you guys talk about it, and then I remembered that we talked about it.
Yeah, right?
I'd go back and listen to it, but at this point I think I'd cringe too much at our production values back then, so...
it's okay. It's the thought that counts.
It is the thought that counts. And with that said, now that's it. We thought about those of you that don't want to hear any spoilers, so this is your chance to get out. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we hope to see you next week. Okay, we got in our comfy spoiler chairs. We get to take a break and just do some quick spoiler review, because definitely there's some stuff to mention, probably particularly in the marathon.
Look, guys, we talk from across the room. Can we do that one?
Oh, please.
So, as I.G's finishing the race, where we know he should not be running because he has an injury that is getting worse, and most likely, if something bad happens, he's probably never going to be able to run again. He turns the fucking corner, and you get this music that cuts out and him in horrifying pain, only to look up and meet eyes with Kakeru at the finish line, knowing that his friend is probably never going to run again, but will finish this goddamn race for each other. And it is so good and so powerful, and my meaning for running is you.
Yeah, I got so fucked by earlier, I.G is thinking of Kakeru, and he is like, my running dreams are taking life through you. And then Kakeru's like, you asked me what running means. Running is you. They fill each other. Like, it's so beautiful.
And it's all so glittery and pretty, and it mirrors the first scene where Kakeru was being watched by I.G only in reverse.
Yeah, he's glowing yellow.
Yeah. And I'm like, I see what you're doing here. And for one, fuck you, how dare you? And two, I love you, will you marry me?
Oh, it's so beautiful. Like, I think that a lot of sports anime that I like do tend to have really good camaraderie between the leads, but like these two just really the fact that they complete each other. like they just totally do. And it's beautiful. And I love it. And I also believe that when Kakeru said that he's in love, which was saying he was in love with running, which implies he's in love with I.G, okay? There, drop the mic.
I mean, it just is what it is. But yeah, that scene was beautiful, and it's like, it's gonna stick with me for a really long time, because there's just so much stuff that happens between the first scene in the anime and one of the last scenes in the anime, but it all ties everything together in this beautiful, sparkly golden bow, and I love it.
And yeah, every time they showed that close up of I.G's knee, and you heard that squeaking wheel, and I was just like, this is making it sound so painful, and
And I mean, like, obviously we as the audience know with Kakeru that, like, yeah, this is going to be his last time, and then it's even just solidified with, like, that he limps, like, with that time skip, like, I think it's supposed to be, like, 2.5 years later. What did y'all think of the time skip?
Unnecessary, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, pretty much same. Yeah. Like, I think even if they wanted to do it, they could have just made it a little shorter. I didn't give a shit about, again, returning to, like, the Hana thing, and, like, some of that stuff. I liked that we see that, like, yeah, the team has grown. I like that, again, we do get that limp from I.G, but that he has a new path that he's going on.
And that at least Kakeru and the twins are still on the team running now as seniors.
Musa's mustache tilted me. His facial hair. I was like, wait, how many years in the future is this? What?
Hey girl, listen, I remember that Craig did No Shave November 1 year, and he got some facial hair real quick.
Yeah.
Damn,
so I guess
that's fair.
2 years. Yeah, he had time.
That's true. That's very true.
That was very funny though. Craig with facial hair is very interesting. It's not bad. It's just interesting.
I don't think I've ever seen that, actually, and now I need to make sure that I see that before I die. I also really love the fact that the show began and ended on the same question, which was the do you like running? God, hurt me. Yes, I like running.
No, you don't. Don't fucking lie to me, Cammy.
I like running in the sense of this show's context of running. I don't like physically running myself.
All right.
It could be different.
Okay, Cammy, whenever you come back next time, we obviously need to, in honor of this show, run
a mile.
A mile. A singular mile.
God, now I'm just getting flashbacks to when we had to run the Monday mile in my middle school PE class, and I had the 8 a.m. PE class.
Ew.
So every Monday we had to go run a mile on our fucking track, and it was miserable.
Ew.
Yeah. To get back to the show, speaking of things that are miserable, good God, Shindo pushed himself.
Oh my God. I had that spoiled for me. It was going to happen, so I was a little I was frustrated. But even then, like, even though I knew he was going to run his section sick, I was not prepared
That
for
was just so grueling.
that scene.
I think there was, like, one moment where, or, like, with it, there were maybe a couple moments where I had just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of suspension of disbelief where I was, like, just,
He would have
for some
killed
reason,
over. He wouldn't have made it.
Yeah. Yeah, and, like, there's a part where he falls, but yet that is kind of inconsequential. This is there for dramatic effect. So, like, I had a little bit of that, but honestly, as soon as he finished, and then the news reporter said that he proved that he has, like, the most iron will of anybody in Japan, I just, like, teared up. I was like, oh.
I mean,
That is so true.
To be fair, people have done insane things when they are running on adrenaline. Like, I remember reading this story about a woman who was able to lift a car off of her dying son.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that. So maybe that moment was so important to him, his adrenaline just kicked it. I don't know. That's the only way it would have been humanly possible. But I'm just surprised he wasn't immediately fucking hospitalized. Like,
that's, yeah, and, like, later he, like, gets up with the sick mask on, and he's like, okay. Oh, and then everybody on the FaceTime, like, just like, Musa, or not Musa, they're like, Shindo! And then Musa shoves his face into the camera. And then whoever was with him was like, you're not gonna get closer by, like, taking up all the camera space. But Musa just wanted to see his buddy.
I think
It was so sweet.
was it one of the twins, or was it King?
It might have been King that was, like, with him. I just, honestly, like, I think I at least teared up on everybody's marathon stretch except for the twins.
the twins suck.
Yeah.
I wish that they didn't need that many runners to do the Hakone Ekiden, because they could just remove them.
They could just write them out.
And, like, nothing else would have changed, and everything still would have been perfect.
Pretty much.
And Hana would be less stale bread.
Oh my god. I liked that that Musa had a flash of Tanzania, like, when he was running. That was really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked, yeah. I honestly just, I think that, again, I just really like that the marathon leads to this formula where, like, yes, it's formulaic, but it's really cool because we get that last piece of insight from every character. That was just really nice.
I also like that, I mean, it's just true that the Hakone Ikuden just has different challenges. Like, some of them, like, part of the track is more steep, part of it is more, like, narrow, part of it is definitely more in, like, the out in the open, and, like different, you have different kind of trials and how each member was assigned to each section, and I kind of wonder if there was a reason why each person was on each section. I know Yuki's, they definitely had a reason, because he was running downwards. And
they said that he had, like, the best central balance of all of them, and that would be key to running downhill.
Right. Well, I don't even necessarily mean, like, a physical reason, which definitely they show. I mean, like, an emotional one. Like, he was going through a downward spiral with his emotions about his family and everything else, and he was having trouble keeping up with his emotions keeping up with keeping his feet working in front of him. I wonder, like...
Why did you make that, 10 times worse for me? Oh, man. I'm not going to be able to handle that scene
God.
again.
Yuki's trek is one of my favorites, because, everything is, he's doing and saying and feeling and everything that's going on around him is perfectly centralized on the exact character, struggle he's having at that exact moment in time. And I just wonder if, that same, precision was put into the other character. And I'm sure it was. It was written as a novel, and novels always have these kind of amazing, reasons for doing things if they're a good novel. And I mean, it won an award, so I'm assuming it's a good fucking novel. But, she does this stuff or she or he, whoever the writer is, did a really good job of making that kind of stuff apparent throughout the story. So I'm just wondering, what the other parts of the race could represent for each character. I don't know. I want to know.
Yeah, it would be interesting to go more in depth in that. I really did also actually like that scene before the marathon where I.G was, giving everybody assignments and kind of just explaining a little bit. And then they each kind of had their reactions to it. They were like, Musa, we really need you in this part because it's, instrumental. This is a part where we really need someone reliable. And then he's like, oh, wait, that's me? You need to rely on me. That was really sweet. Prince starting it is also just so sweet, and I.G finishing it, and Kakeru getting to pass to I.G. All of that.
Prince running until he threw up, but continuing running.
Oh my god! Yeah.
I've done that before. It is not fun.
No. And the cut to Yuki's shoes at the end of his part, and the fact you can see that the blood had soaked into the soles, and that was just oh, ow! But yeah, I can see it, because he was running very fast downhill, and all that shit.
Yeah. Anything else in spoilers? I think the only other thing I would have mentioned, and it wasn't worth our time, was the twin thing, and we already addressed that, where it should have been. So
I think the only other spoiler I wanted to talk about is I really like that Kakeru's backstory is not what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be I don't know, something similar to I.G's maybe. Maybe he had an injury and he messed something up for a teammate or whatever. But it literally ended up being the one time he tried to stand up for somebody, he decked somebody and it ruined his life. And that adds so much to why he never wants to stand up for anybody or be part of a team, because the one time he tried to be and tried to do the right thing, he lashed out in a violent way and it ended horribly. And it makes him, every time afterwards when he violently lashes out, it makes him super triggered. And I'm like, he's so interesting now.
Yeah. His trauma is so well developed, and it just really gives you this strong sense of understanding with him. And again, I'm so happy that he was able to get back to doing something that he loves, wholeheartedly based on loving it, instead of the trauma that had turned him away from it in the first place. It's just really good
stuff. The bit where he did almost lose it at at Sakaki, because Sakaki totally deserved it at that point, but still everyone had to grab him and hold him back, and they were screaming at him, remember, we're still here. And that was
I.G handled that so well.
I.G's got the most there are so many times where I was like, if I.G is dubbed in English, I just hope when he looks at this evil little redhead, he just looks at him and says, bless your little heart. In the most condescending Southern woman accent I have ever heard.
I could see that. God, I would love that.
I want it so bad.
It's a shame you'll be so busy with chores that day.
What a shame.
This isn't really a spoiler, but it is a fun tie-in. So the scene in episode 2 where Haiji is basically just he becomes the ogre and he's just threatening everybody, honestly was one of my favorite scenes ever for a very long time. So much so that I went on the Kitsu page for Run with the Wind and I wrote as a reaction, I.G is an absolute savage. Little did I know that sentiment would continue throughout the show in much broader senses than I'd once thought. Oof. I stand by it. He's a savage.
He is.
An absolute savage. Yeah. Aw. Alrighty.
That was
Shall
fun.
we ourselves? Yeah. That was fun. Are y'all ready to take off to our next goals?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. I don't have any of those.
You don't have to run there. Pace yourself. Pace yourself.
So instead he
I have a
runs
math
away.
test I have to take tomorrow. I don't want to think about it.
Oh,
That's okay.
I'm so sorry.
We'll all achieve our goals one at a time, and one day, John will run forward and say, "Yes, I finally accomplished it. I finally watched March Comes In Like a Lion."
we can dream.
One day I will. I promise.
It's gonna be on my deathbed. He's gonna come up and be like, "Cassie, I just want you to know, in your dying breath, I finally did it. Just for you."
Alrighty, everybody. Until that day comes, this has been episode 126 of the Annie Chat Box. Thank you so much for joining us. We really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we'll stay tuned next week. Till then.
Bye-bye.